Have you ever poured your heart and soul into a dream, only to watch it slip through your fingers because someone else claimed it as their own? In that moment, you don't just lose recognition, you lose a piece of yourself. This is the story of how I found the courage to walk away when everything I believed in was stripped from me, and how, in letting go, I discovered who I really am. My name is Anna. I grew up in a small town in northern Germany, where the nearest big city was 2 hours away by train, and the horizon was nothing but fields of wheat and the occasional farm silo. As a teenager, I spent evenings sketching ad campaigns for imaginary brands and punching in copy drafts on my grandmother's old typewriter. My parents encouraged me. My mother would bring me cups of hot cocoa when I stayed up late perfecting layouts. My father would point out every kerning mistake with a proud smile. I dreamed of the day I'd work in a bustling metropolis, surrounded by creative energy, collaborating on projects that would spark conversations across continents. After graduation, I applied to marketing agencies in Berlin, Munich, Hamburg, places that felt worlds away from home. When the offer from a top Berlin agency arrived, I felt like the universe was finally nodding its head in agreement. I packed my life into 2 suitcases, my laptop, a stack of portfolio prints, and an armful of highlighters, and moved into a cramped flat share near Prenzlauer Berg. Berlin was everything I'd imagined and more. Midnight art shows in warehouse basements, street musicians playing cello on subway platforms, pop-up cafes nestled between graffiti-covered walls. I rode my bike past the Brandenburg Gate every morning, the sunrise turning the stone pillars golden as if welcoming me into a new chapter. Walking into the agency's loft office for the first time, I felt the butterflies that come with possibility. Exposed brick walls, steel beams overhead, open workspaces buzzing with discussion. My desk was a reclaimed door propped across 2 filing cabinets. Above it, I taped a Polaroid of my family and a quote from Maya Angelou. "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have." On day 1, I met Clara. She had a sharp bob haircut and wore chunky rimmed glasses that made her look like a modern-day scientist. She greeted me with a warm smile and a cup of chai tea, told me about the best Bauhaus-inspired cafe around the corner, and walked me through our first assignment, brainstorming a social media launch for a sustainable fashion brand. We clicked instantly. She adored data, I thrived on visuals, and together we made plans to merge our skills into something greater than the sum of its parts. Over the next months, we cemented what felt like an unbreakable partnership. We traded playlists, her experimental jazz for my acoustic folk, met for coffee at dawn, and stayed late into the night sketching mood boards in the communal lounge. I watched the screen of my laptop glow under my tired eyes as I refined every pixel, while Clara's spreadsheets scrolled endlessly with conversion metrics and demographic breakdowns. When one of my graphics got a shout-out in the weekly newsletter, Clara cheered like it was her own victory. When Clara's analysis landed on the front page of a marketing blog, I celebrated with her. It felt like synergy, mutual admiration, true teamwork. Then came the day the biggest client in the agency's history walked through the door, a cutting-edge tech startup ready to launch its product across 5 European markets. This was the kind of account that agencies dream of, the kind of challenge that could make or break careers. The director announced, "Anna, Clara, you too will lead this project together." My heart raced. This was our moment. For weeks, we poured every ounce of ourselves into the campaign. Late nights in the brainstorming room, pizzas delivered at 2 a.m., empty coffee cups piled high. I crafted the core creative vision, a series of dynamic visuals highlighting the startup's sleek design philosophy. Clara dove into the numbers, pinpointing key target segments, plotting ad spend across channels, fine-tuning A/B tests for optimal click-through. We celebrated small victories, perfecting the campaign tagline, nailing the storyboard, getting unanimous internal approval from the senior team. A day before the pitch, I noticed subtle changes. Clara didn't send me her updated slide notes. I discovered them rewritten in the shared folder without comment. She started coming in earlier and leaving later, after I'd gone home, often staying in the conference room alone. When I asked about her changes, she brushed it off. Just refining things so we shine. I told myself it was stress, that deadlines can make people behave irrationally. I didn't want to imagine anything worse. The morning of the presentation, we entered the glass-walled boardroom together. The founders of the startup sat at one end of the table. A stern investor from London perched at the other. The agency's senior partners lined the sides. I could feel the electric charge in the air. I held the clicker. Clara carried the printed decks. She started strong, an enthusiastic overview that used my visuals but framed them as her own. I waited for my cue, took a breath, and began to speak. She interrupted mid-sentence, reworded my thoughts, and smiled as if she'd said them first. I stopped, pinched my lips together, and tried again. When I moved into the data section, charts I'd analyzed, metrics I'd curated, she leaned forward and said, "Let me clarify Anna's point," then launched into her own paraphrased version, never once naming me or giving me credit. My heart pounded so loudly I thought they could all hear it. I forced a smile, slid back in my chair, and let her finish. 15 minutes later, she wrapped up, fielded questions flawlessly, and closed her laptop with a flourish. The room erupted into polite applause. Pat on the back for Clara. "Fantastic work," they said. I nodded numbly, murmured, "Thank you," and slipped out. In the hallway, her heels clicked as she celebrated with the team. Someone called out, "Clara, that deck was brilliant." I stood in the corner, a silent spectator to my own erasure. Back at my desk, I stared at the screensaver, blue sky and birds, and felt a storm inside. Later, in the bathroom mirror, I wore the face of someone broken, hollow eyes, trembling lips. The betrayal was more than professional. It felt intimately personal. How could someone I trusted so deeply plan and execute such a betrayal? Yet I stayed. The days after were a haze of routine. Emails, meetings, the same projects replaying in my head. Every time Clara walked by, I braced for another slight. Every Slack ping sounded like a threat. My creativity fled. My inspiration dried up. I felt hollowed out, as if all the color had been sanded away from my life. I tried confiding in friends over video calls. "It's just office politics," they'd say, comforting but distant. My roommate, hearing the story, offered to walk me through mindfulness exercises. My sister sent playlists of calming piano tracks, but no one could whisper away the sting of seeing your own work paraded under another's name. A week later, my manager pulled me into his office. I imagined a reprimand, a lecture about team spirit, but instead he said, "Anna, I know how much effort you put into that deck. Your design was the heart of the pitch. I'll make sure your contributions are recognized next time." Genuine, even. But the wound was already septic. What was next time when this time had been stolen? I couldn't sleep. Nights stretched into endless loops of office corridors and Clara's triumphant grin. I lay awake from midnight until dawn, going over every interaction, wishing I'd read the signs earlier, wishing I'd spoken up in the boardroom. Regret and anger tangled together like barbed wire in my chest. One evening, needing to escape the apartment, I wandered to the Spree River. The water was dark, reflecting Berlin's lights in trembling shards. I sat on the cold stone embankment and watched the world drift by. Tourists on paddle boats, couples sharing blankets, a lone saxophonist playing a melancholic tune. I asked myself quietly, is this worth it? The anxiety, the sleepless nights, the loss of self. A breeze carried a faint whiff of roasting chestnuts from a street vendor. I closed my eyes and let the air fill my lungs. In that moment, I felt a spark of clarity. Staying meant chaining myself to bitterness and burnout. Quitting wasn't defeat. It was reclaiming my life. The next morning, I opened my laptop and drafted the resignation I'd rehearsed in my head for days. No fury, no accusations, just a gracious, succinct farewell. Dear Marcus and team, thank you for the opportunity to grow and learn over the past 2 years. Today, I resign from my role as Senior Creative Designer, effective at the end of this week. I wish the agency continued success. Sincerely, Anna. I stared at the words for a moment, feeling every syllable breathe relief through me. Then I hit send. A rush of emotions followed. Fear, exhilaration, sorrow, freedom all at once. Over the next few days, I packed my desk. Framed sketches, faded cafe receipts, postcards from brainstorming sessions. I sorted through the storyboards I'd labored over and the photo of Clara and me laughing at a rainy outdoor screening last summer. Each memento carried weight, a reminder of what I'd given and what I deserved. On my final day, Clara nodded at me in passing. No apology, no acknowledgement, just the same clipped greeting. I smiled and said, "Good luck with the next deck." She nodded again, eyes sliding past me. That evening, I stood on my tiny balcony as the sun dipped below Berlin's skyline. The sky bled pink and purple, the rooftops silent. I let the cool air wash over me and released a long breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. In the months that followed, I took a sabbatical to travel. First to Lisbon, where pastel buildings lined narrow streets, then to Florence, where art felt alive on every corner, and finally to the Norwegian fjords, where the world spread out in vast, silent beauty. I sketched in cafes, journaled on train rides, and reconnected with the part of me that thrived on wonder. I found freelance projects that valued my creativity, clients who respected my process, and collaborators who celebrated my ideas. Slowly, the wounds healed. The betrayal became a powerful lesson. To protect my work, to speak my worth, and to never let fear silence my voice again. Quitting didn't break me. It rebuilt me, on my own terms, in my own time. So if you've ever felt unseen, unheard, burned out, or betrayed, know that your story matters. Walking away isn't weakness. Sometimes it's the bravest step toward your true self. Thank you for listening to my journey. If this story resonated, please like, share, and comment below with your experiences. Your voice belongs here in this circle of gentle resilience. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Whisper Heart Stories for more heartfelt tales of life's toughest moments and the strength we find within them. Until next time, stay kind to yourself and to the light within you.